The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Greetings, Centurions, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right mix of coverage for the games you play on your table and on your television. You could think of us as the Beauty and the Beast of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, as he always does, the guy who taught me how to read, Josh. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Are you okay with being the beauty in this situation?
Well, I mean, if we take the whole general idea of Beauty and the Beast, where it is a beast who literally enslaves a girl and she has Stockholm Syndrome, then I guess I have no choice.
Well, it is. I felt really bad. My wife's favorite Disney movie for the longest time was Beauty and the Beast. And then I had that conversation with her about all the potential bad things about that movie. And then she was very upset because she's like, sometimes a movie can just be a movie. And I was like, you're right. Because we do have those conversations sometimes about how sometimes entertainment can just be entertainment. But yeah, she actually, for her birthday one year, I got her one of the original hand drawings from when they originally animated it. So, nice. Which was sweet, and it was a really cool gift, and I was super proud of myself for getting one. And then I was like, well, crap, what am I going to do for a birthday moving forward? What do you do then?
Yeah, start small.
Yeah, that was a mistake. That was not a good place to start. But anyway, hey, this isn't an animation podcast, so that would be fun to talk about too. Coach Mo started watching Troll Hunters. I don't know if you saw that, but
really nice.
So
I'm on season 2
of Troll Hunters.
Yeah,
it's so good. But honestly, everyone, thank you for joining us each week, as you always do. We really appreciate it. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter. Check out all the awesome things that are being posted over on the Instagram by Josh, including games he plays and sometimes games he sets up but never, ever plays. So also use that hashtag Board with VG. Just to kind of keep everyone in the know, talk about all the things. I do think it's interesting because we typically post about about board game pictures and things like that. So I need to start posting some video game stuff on there every once in a while. That's a good point. So I'm going to start trying to do that a little bit, especially with PS4 share. It's so easy to do. I got to figure out. It's just me. I can't figure out how to do screenshots on my Xbox One. I have no idea.
It's easy. You just double tap the Xbox on the controller, the logo. And then it'll give you an option. You just press Y to take the screenshot.
So it's not just a one button press.
No, it used to be, and then they changed it for some reason.
Oh man!
But I know this might be spoilers for later in the video game topic. But when we were playing Sea of Thieves, I took like 15 screenshots, and none of them saved.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know if it has to do with the closed beta or.
I definitely saw screenshots from other people on Twitter and stuff.
I started to think it might have something to do with our game share.
Oh, it very well may have something to do. Maybe they're saved like under my profile or something.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure.
I'll have to take a look.
But I had that sinking feeling that no pun intended.
That was good. That was good. So awesome. But yeah, if you do take pictures, if you were in the Sea of Thieves beta and you took some pictures, use that hashtag Board with VG so we can check them out. That'd be totally awesome. But hey, that's enough housekeeping. Josh, let's talk about some board games. So what board games did you attempt to play?
All right, so this requires a story. I'll try to be as brief as possible. So I'm going to call it, since I'm married now and I have a kid, and our friends are married with kids, we now try to have adult play dates. So I had arranged a play date with my friend Joe for Saturday. And I was looking forward to it all week. And when I mentioned it to him, he said, that'd be great. Maybe the wife can come with our son and, they can play with your son and your wife. I said, yeah, that sounds awesome. So looking forward to it all week. Saturday comes around. I'm like, I go out to my local store. I trade in some 360 games. I get a good amount of credit. I buy a game I've been looking at for a while. I'm like, yes, we're going to get this to the table today. I'm excited. I clean off the table. I put out my mat. I put the board on there. I didn't even open it. I was like, we'll open it together. It'll be awesome. So we get there. They show up and we're chatting. And, he looks at it. And it does have a long play time. It's like 90 to 120 minutes. So he's like, it's like, oh, is it a little bit too long? And he's like, yeah, maybe. I said, okay. So I went and I grabbed Dice Forge, which is a game I've been wanting to play. He's like, okay, this is more manageable. So we sit down. We think we learn the rules. The instructions that come with it are not very good. Again, they're very short, one page. And then as we get the whole board set up and we get our pawns on the table and we take our first initial rolls, his wife says, you guys are coming out here to spend time with your sons, right?
Yes, we are.
I just looked at him and I knew. I said, this isn't going to happen, is it? So I and then we order pizza. And then I have to clear the table off. So I definitely know it's not happening now. So that doesn't happen. I'm bummed. Sunday rolls around. I say to my wife, now Saturday night, I said, I'm playing Spirit Island, which is what I'm going to talk about, because it's 1 to 4 players. And I watched a video and I read the instructions. So I have this figured out. We're going to play this. So I said, no, nothing's going to stop me. So I set it up Sunday morning. I get up, get the baby up. Baby puts in his high chair. I set the table up. I put the board out. She's like, you set this up already? I said, yeah. So it sits out. Baby goes for a nap. I go for a nap. She studies and uses the table. So she pushes all of the game back, get to the back end of the table. Then we go grocery shopping. And I'm like, I'm playing this tonight. There's no way I'm not playing this. So we get home and I set it up again. Didn't play it at all. I'm so mad. But anyways, I can talk to you about the game. And I'm very excited to play it. And I'm going to give the general idea of the game is it's a very different take on what I would call like a worker placement colonization kind of game, where you have the Christopher Columbuses of the world, new inhabitants exploring this island that is unknown to civilized man. The island has Dahan, which are like our version of Native Americans that are already on the island, but they don't know anything. The catch is you are not playing as the civilization coming to the island. You're playing as the spirits of the island, keeping the invaders out. So you're fighting these incoming, and there's even, once you get experience enough, there's even like scenarios where it's like the British are coming from certain areas and different scenarios that are more challenging. But the game is supposedly already hard. When you play the game, you have a board for the people who might eventually get to see this. Looks like this. And each board is a different type of terrain. So you have grass and you have like trees and you have desert and you have like mountains and you also have oceans. And as you play, you have like starting pieces on the tile where you fill them in, Native American creatures, and all these things are on here. And this is for anyone who can see. This is a 1-player board. And if the more people you play, you connect each board for a player onto it. And each spirit will start on a board, but you can move to the other player's board as you play. And then you have these spirit cards. There's, I think, 8 spirits. They all have really cool names, like a spread of rampant green, or like there's lightning-based ones, thunder-based ones. One's like a nightmarish horror thing, and as you have complexity on it as well. So this one's moderate. You have a story and you have setup, and after you complete the setup, you turn your piece around and you have your starting board, which has
pretty handy.
Yeah, and it has
that's cool.
Growth charts on the top. So under your growth, you have 3 options, and at the beginning of your turn, you choose one every time. So like a spread of rampant green, you can reclaim a card and gain power cards. So you reclaim a card from your discard pile. You can add presence, which is a color of your spirit onto a part of the board. The more presence you have, the more you can use a power. So on the cards you're drawing are powers, which are essentially ward off or kill the invaders. And then you also have innate powers from these spirits that if you get to a certain level of presence, it's something you can use every turn. And you also, each spirit has, I keep wanting to call them creatures, each spirit has special rules that work towards said creatures or spirits. So what I really like about the idea of the game is, back to like this chart here, it's kind of like Overwatch. Each character has a very specific strength. So like this guy's defense is super high, but his fear is low. And the fear comes into play is you're trying to scare these people off of the island.
Mm.
And as you play through, you have a fear board. And as what you do on the fear board is, as you start with 4 fear tokens per player. And as you inflict enough fear, if you inflict 4 fear for 1 player, you would draw a fear card, and it has an effect on the people trying to invade. After that turn the invaders actually do a phase also where they either build or move onto places on the map. So if they start with like a town hall, they can a human, we'll call them, can spawn there or explore from there, and basically they would move out to an adjacent land. So the longer you play, the harder it gets.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because they just keep on expanding. Although the game describes it as you're a weak spirit at the beginning, and then the longer you survive, the stronger you get. So I think you could take it either way. But essentially, you're playing this game and it's all fully cooperative, so you're not playing against each other. But there's things where you can kind of set up a move where you push the invaders into like your teammates' area, so then they can kill them on their turn. And it's also simultaneous play as well, so you can talk about what you're gonna do, and then you just kind of take your turns simultaneously. So for it having such a long playtime, you would think simultaneous play would cut that down.
Right. Usually that's why it's there. But
so and then the Dahan are these little villagers that will fight for you if you put them on the same square as invaders, but they also fight each other. So you can lose Dahan as well as you can kill people as well. So there's give and take to it. I'm really looking forward to playing it because it seems really cool. And I watched a 25-minute video, and before I read the rules, and they nailed the whole rule book.
Oh, nice.
So for a game that's supposedly this complex, 25-minute video, I think really hit what I needed.
Gotcha.
To know. So
awesome.
That being said, why don't you hit us with your board games?
So, I mean, the big thing, I had mentioned last week that, my wife is pretty under the weather. She actually finally went back to work at the very end of last week, but then kind of overdid it. So it was pretty much laid out the entire weekend as well. And, so we haven't had a ton of time to game. We've really been falling back on some of the more simple 2-player games, and we haven't really been able to bust anything super new or super awesome out. So what I'm going to pull out is an oldie but a goodie, a game that I've played a ton that I have not talked about. I've talked about in passing on the podcast, but never talked about it in depth. And I think I'm one of the people who maybe still likes this game more than a lot of people, apparently, because it's not a game you hear talked about very often anymore. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into and talk about Dead of Winter. So Dead of Winter is one of, honestly, if I had to make a top 10 list, this game would probably be in my top 10 games, period. I really, really enjoy this game. So if you're not familiar with Dead of Winter, it is a sometimes cooperative game that has you trying to basically survive the winter. Each game plays out as a different scenario. So in the rule book, there's a number of scenarios that happen. You set up the game based off of whatever that scenario is. You basically have a base that you're trying to kind of protect, that you bring supplies back to. And then there's all these different locations set up across the table: a school, a police department, a hospital, things like that. So what your goal is your goal is to try to successfully complete, whatever the main objective is for that scenario. But every player also gets an individual card that they are trying to complete as well. Now, you can set the game up so that you are playing cooperatively, or you can set the game up so that you don't know if you're playing cooperatively, where you have some trader cards basically built into the mix. I prefer playing it that way because what they do is they do a nice balance of you mix up a certain number of cards based on the number of people you have, pass them out. So it's possible you might have one trader or two traders, or you might not have any, but you just don't know. So the goal then is to, successfully complete, if you're not a trader, successfully complete whatever the main objective is. But then if you really, really want to win, like super win, or be the only person who actually wins, also to complete the objective you have on your card. So the game literally, say you're playing with 5 people, you can literally have 0 people win or 5 people win every single time, every game. And I think that's one of the things I enjoy about it so much, is that you just never really know. There are some of the feedback about this game sometimes that folks will say, okay, if I know I can't complete my objective, so I can't be like the individual winner or the super winner if we complete the other objective, I will just tank the whole game so nobody can win. Or, and part of me is like, well, then get better friends. I don't know what to say to that. Like I get it. I always take solace in the fact of like, hey, even if we complete the main objective, but I don't complete mine, like I still kind of won, which is better than everybody losing to me, I guess. But whatever. I guess maybe I'm just different. But anyway, what you do in the game is pretty straightforward. Actually, the game is very intimidating when you first look at it. But really, what you're doing is you're like, every turn you reveal a crisis of like, hey, we have to complete this thing by the time we get all the way around the table one time. In addition to working on the overall goal that you're trying to do, everybody then rolls their dice that they have, and then each player takes their turn in order. On your turn, you can go search different locations. Every time you move from location to location, you have to roll an exposure dice, because it is called Dead of Winter for a reason. So you have to roll an exposure dice. So you might, get bit by a zombie. You might get frostbite. There's bad things that might happen there. So you can search for supplies. Obviously, like the police station is going to more likely have like guns and ammo and all that good stuff. The hospital is more likely to have medicine. So you have to kind of strategically pick where you want to move to. You also have your home base that you can then go ahead and barricade. You have waste that builds up in your base that you need to clean out to keep everyone happy. So you can clean out that waste. So those are kind of the general things you're trying to do. So you have to spend food tokens as well, because you have to feed all the people in your group. You have a group leader. You have a card that you're picking up, like, this is my person. And then you have followers with you. So you have that kind of different player powers that they have different advantages and disadvantages. Sparky the dog is universally the best. He's like awesome. Like I always take Sparky because I think Sparky is great. And Sparky the dog can hold a gun, which is just crazy and cool. And then the coolest part, or one of the coolest parts about this game, is they have this crossroads mechanic. And what the crossroads mechanic is that the person ahead of you in turn order, when I start my turn, they take a crossroads card. And they're paying attention to that crossroads card while I'm taking my turn. And if at any point during my turn, I do the thing that is listed at the top of the crossroads card that says, like, if this person turns in 2 food tokens, or if this person searches 2 different separate locations, or whatever it might be, then this event happens on the crossroads card. And they just stop me right where I am and say, like, hey, we always make people make funny music, like dun dun dun, like you have to do that, and then you read the crossroads card. but it just is a really cool way of like, you're always kind of thinking like, okay, is what I'm going to do, can I keep doing what I'm going to do? Like, I laid this plan out, but is this other thing that I don't know is going to happen? I'm going to totally throw a monkey wrench into that. And it just makes cool stories, and it makes every game different. Even when you start replaying scenarios, and you have all these different characters you can use, those crossroads cards really add some flavor and some spice to the game. And the cool thing is there is a generator where you can create your own. So if you're like, hey, I have some cool ideas about what I want to do here, you can add your own flair and your own flavor to the game. So I really enjoy Dead of Winter. I think it is a fantastic game. There's multiple expansions for it. For me, as someone who really looks for games that absolutely ooze theme and makes you feel like you're there, this to me is one of the games that does it the best. I think they nails the theme really well. I feel like I'm in the dead of winter, and I feel like these zombies are coming. And there's a whole bunch I didn't talk about as far as like how do you end the game and all that good stuff. But that's not super important when it comes to getting a feel of like, hey, how is this game play? And I just love it. I wish I could play it more. I think the more people you have for it, the more I enjoy playing it. So the wife and I don't just play it, the two of us, very often. But when we get groups together, it's definitely a game that I bust out. So if you've never checked it out and you like thematic games and you like, you're not over the zombie theme yet, I really, really recommend Dead of Winter. I think it's an absolutely exceptional game.
For sure. Oh, I'm that guy.
It's late, man. It's okay. It's like almost midnight for you.
I'm that guy in Dead of Winter where I would swear, I would tell them I'm not a traitor. And I said, don't kick me out. If you kick me out, I will make it hard for you. Mm-hmm. And then they would kick me out inevitably because they always think I'm the traitor. So then I just go to each location and make as much noise as I could until I die.
Distract all the zombies. Yeah. I think it's a little different if you get kicked out and you're not the traitor. Yeah. Then you can't win anymore.
Yeah, well, that game was no traitors.
Right.
No traitors.
Actually, because then your victory conditions change in that situation. Yeah. So, then absolutely, because you're still trying to win then. You're not trying to like tank the game for everyone. You're just trying to win. So.
Yes. All right. So we wanted to take a moment and talk about music in regards to gaming. And there's some stuff I didn't know about in here. So, video games have the advantage of having a soundtrack built into the game. But what do you do for board games? What do we do for board games? If we do anything at all? There are a few services apparently out there that will help you choose board game music. Melodice, I think I'm saying it right, as you put in the title of a game. Then it creates a YouTube playlist of songs, which often include video game soundtracks, oddly, to play tailored to that game theme. Sorry. In addition, Tabletop Audio has free 10-minute tracks sorted by genre you can create a playlist for. So, Kyle, do you care about music or audio when it comes to board games?
When I first started playing board games, I usually would just like put on like one of my Spotify stations. And, for me, that meant, awesome music from the 90s, because that is the best music ever. But the longer I played, the more I realized that sometimes I would get distracted by the music, because I really enjoy music. I listen to music a lot. So sometimes I would get distracted by it. So I was like, I can't probably be playing all these songs I really, really enjoy while I'm playing board games. It's not working out quite the way I want it to. Plus, how do you make everyone happy when it comes to music choices or popular music choices? So then I went to no music at all while we're playing. I'm like, nothing's happening. We're just, whatever. But then I found people more often would like look at their phones and stuff. So I was like, well, crud. Now I got to find this happy medium thing. I got to find something to do. So I was talking to my wife, who is far smarter than I am. And she's like, well, why don't we just play like classical music or something like that? So what we started with, because she's a huge Lord of the Rings fan, is we started with the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings. So that's where we started with, that when we would have board game meetups and we'd have people over, we would just put on the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and listen to that while we played. And for me, that was the moment that I was like, man, maybe there is something to this, because there are some games that fits really well with when you think of like the music from Lord of the Rings. When you're playing any game that has like a high fantasy theme, it seems to fit pretty well. So then I was like, well, heck, what else might there be out there? And that's kind of where I found these other services that exist. And I think it's some cool things. There are definitely much further out there things you can do to help like set the mood while you play board games. If you're not aware, there are places that will actually send you like, you know, aroma candles and things like that like fit in with board game themes, including like bog and swamp and like all these things, which I'm not quite going to go to that extent. But I do think of like having some music in the background that fits kind of the theme that you're playing. I think even subconsciously for me, kind of helps keep me in the experience a little bit. It's not the thing that's going to say that I'm not going to enjoy the game if it's not there, but I think it helps keep me engaged in the game longer, and I'm focused and I look at it more and I'm thinking about it more than I am as like, and I'm less willing to go pick up my phone right away. So I try to, you know, kind of create that mood or that atmosphere when we're playing. However, if you're changing games a lot or depending on the style of game you're playing, there isn't always going to be things that are going to fit it very, very well. I do recommend checking out Melodice, though. It is a cool website. I think it's just melodice.com, MELODICE. But literally all you do is you type in the title of a game. I think the one I checked today, like, because I was just doing it for fun, I did photosynthesis because that's one of the games that I have all the rules ready to go. As soon as the wife is feeling up to playing board games, I'm ready to go with that one. And it was funny because like the entire playlist track that they had, which was long, it was like 100 songs probably. But it was like the entire soundtrack to like the Trine games. So it was like Trine 2, Trine 3. I'm like, oh man, okay. So clearly, and it fits though. Like when you listen to it, you're like, yeah, I guess that would kind of fit photosynthesis. It seems like it's good. So yeah, I enjoy trying to create a little bit of an atmosphere while I'm playing board games. Obviously, that's in my home. If I go elsewhere, whatever people want to do is fine. Do you do anything, Josh? Do you care about this at all?
You know, I would say now, like 80% of the time we don't listen to music, but we used to. And I like to. It's just been so hectic now, like just trying to get a game in. It's like an afterthought. But since you said that cell phone thing, it makes me want to try it again, because I bet you're absolutely right. It gives something people to focus on other than, you know, their phones when it's on downtime. Our go-to would always be the Pacific Rim soundtrack, because it's our favorite movie. The two of us. It's not my favorite movie, but we share it as it's like her favorite movie, and I like it a lot.
Really? My wife hates that movie.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
I find a lot of a lot of people are up and or down on that movie, so I don't, you know, either people love it or hate it. I don't meet many people who are like, it's all right. Most people are like, I hated that or I love that. So we're really looking forward to the sequel. But yeah, we'd put that on, and then like thematically, if I could put on like Lord of the Rings, obviously is popular too in that theme. But if we're playing like a space theme game, I put on like the Alien soundtrack, or even Firefly. So I used to try to do stuff like that. And maybe I'll try again. I'm definitely check out that Melodice thing and see what that's all about. But yeah, I think it's important. I mean, we would always keep the volume low. It just has to be kind of there. Just like it could, you don't need to know it's enhancing your experience for it to enhance your experience.
Absolutely.
And that's usually the best. That's usually when music is the best, is when you don't necessarily pick up on it in the background.
No,
I mean, obviously sometimes it makes things better, but there are times like when you go see like a Christopher Nolan movie, like, you know that his score is going to be impressive, but if you get through a movie and just enjoy the movie, that's the best way to enjoy a score, because you're like, oh, it just seamlessly fit, in my opinion, the scenes. Like Pacific Rim is a little big. Like the music was big because it's a big movie.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I went around in circles about what I was trying to prove, but
no, that's
if it doesn't have to be in your face or distracting, I guess is really what I wanted to say.
Gotcha.
In a nutshell.
Who did the score for Pacific Rim?
You know, I don't know if it was anyone. Maybe it was like Zimmer, but I don't think it was anyone big.
Yeah, I was like, because I'm looking, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever like really thought about the Pacific Rim soundtrack before.
Yeah, it's so good though. It's really good. It's very well done. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm waiting for it to come out on vinyl, so I can add it to the collection.
So yeah, no, that's a good one. Actually, I am a little different than you in movies. I like when I feel like there's a difference between me recognizing when a score is great in a movie and like having me be like, oh man, this is great, versus me recognizing when a score is not good. Because there's definitely been times when I've been watching a movie and sometimes maybe the movie isn't super good. So I'm like, wow, this score is really good though. So like I can hear that. So I think if the movie's really good, maybe you can't always like jump out at the score. But as someone who just really enjoys that style of music, I tend to tune into scores a lot in classical movies. Though I will say, and a very brief aside, have you seen Baby Driver?
I have it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Man, Baby Driver.
Yeah, I want to see it so bad because I've heard so many good things. I have Baby Driver, Wonder Woman, The Big Sick. These are all movies I have that I haven't had time to watch yet.
So pick one, that or the board games to be played before next week, and report back. Baby Driver or the board game, either one. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
no,
Baby
I
Driver.
will watch Baby Driver.
That is
I'll
great.
make time for it.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know this topic is not super suited to board games. It may be a little more of a video game focused topic. So, hey, let's talk about some video games. Josh, what have you been playing on your television?
What a great question. So I got Celeste because everyone was talking about it. Apparently not just everyone we know, but everyone in the ratings universe. So if you guys don't know what Celeste is, it's a game on the Nintendo Switch. I think it's exclusive to the Switch.
No, it's on everything.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah. There you go. There you go. So it's a super hard, challenging, think Super Meat Boy, if you know what that is, kind of game. I think that's really the only comparison I can make from games I'm familiar with. But essentially, it's a death simulator.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So you're playing through these levels. It's 8-bit, and it's funny because my wife saw me playing. She goes, "I thought you were sick of 8-bit games," and I'm like, "Yeah, I am actually." But
except this one.
I didn't know this was 8-bit when I purchased it, so that's on me. So it's 8-bit style, and it's I'm trying to just. So it's side-scrolling, climbing a mountain in the game. It's Mount Celeste, I believe, is the name of the mountain.
Yep.
Or Celeste Mountain, and you're just this like girl who wants to hike, apparently, who is not allowed to sleep at this lodge with this cranky old woman. They have like this weird spat at the beginning, like this weird fight, and the old lady laughs at this poor girl who's about to go die a bunch, which is so bizarre. So you have a dash and you have a grab, so you can grab onto ledges, but your grab does run out of stamina, and you will fall. You are dodging spikes, and mostly spikes so far for me. I completed the first chapter. I think, are they split chapters or acts or?
Yeah, I think they're chapters.
Or whatever it is. I just haven't gone back to it just because game time has been short. I like it. It's challenging. It's a game that I feel like if I don't get into the swing of it, though, it would be a game that's so frustrating that I might not pick back up. So I want to make sure I put some good quality time into it.
How are you playing it on your Switch? Are you playing it handheld or are you playing it on the television?
I'm playing on TV.
Are you using the Pro Controller?
No, I don't. I haven't invested that much in. I'm fine with my regular.
With your Joy-Cons with the grip.
The Joy-Cons with the grip, I'm fine with that. I don't need to spend $80 or $90, whatever it is.
How do you feel about the accuracy of the D-pad of the? I shouldn't say the D-pad of the analog stick on the Joy-Cons for this game?
For me, it's been fine so far.
Really? I'm really struggling with it. I feel like there are times where I'm like, no, I am holding, like, I want to go straight and I'm like going up at an angle, or that I feel like it's not quite like there's like basically no D-pad. I mean, on the Switch, right. There is, but there isn't. So I'm having to use the analog sticks. I don't feel like they're quite living up to what I want them to. So I might try docking it and playing with my Pro Controller and see if maybe I just suck a lot, which is very possible. But I feel like the D-pads aren't quite doing all the time what I want them to. Like there have been times where I'm like, yep, and I just let myself die because I'm like, that's not at all what I intended to do. So I'm enjoying it though. I think the game's great. I just am wondering if maybe I'm just having bad skills and I don't want to admit it in my old age.
I'll have to try it in handheld mode, see if I get the same thing, because maybe it's just a handheld issue.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
I don't know.
But I mean, again, I'm enjoying it, and I'll put some more time into it. We also played, I'm including you in this, in PSVG-ers. Got in on the Sea of Thieves closed beta over the weekend. We were fortunate enough for the game sharing to work, for Kyle to get in on my founder's invitation. So
it was great.
That was fun. PSVG Donnie, Jason, or Fluxe, as you know him, myself and Kyle, and then Lobo Rican in chat. Oh, crap. And I'm forgetting what I'm supposed to say.
Wolves on top.
Wolves on top. Thank you. Wolves on top. Wolves on top. So we played for a bit until they kicked us out because they were doing maintenance or something that they didn't post anywhere.
Closed beta. It's a closed beta.
But we had some fun. I know that Kyle tweeted about it. And yeah, we definitely had that thing where I was trying to give everyone directions and it wasn't necessarily working out great. And Donnie was running boats into islands and we were taking on water, and we got into an awesome cannon battle at the end of our session. And then after we got kicked out, we jumped into Halo 5 for a little bit and played some Warzone. I think for me, it's been a while since I've been able to do some good social gaming. Mm-hmm. That was a highlight of my week. I had such a great time playing with everybody, and I think we had 2 good gaming experiences. For the most part. So I really enjoyed the time with Sea of Thieves and playing Halo 5 with everybody. So for me, that was my gaming for the week.
That's awesome. It's funny because that was literally the first time I played Halo 5. Like I had never touched the game, but like I had it downloaded because I intended to play it. And then we're like, oh, let's play Halo 5. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Like, and I've played a lot of the previous Halos, so that wasn't a big deal. But I was like, well, I wonder what's different. Like, what does this button still do what I think it does? And how is this going to work? So there were times where I'm like, okay, so like this seems to be jump, but this kind of seems to be like thrust and jump. Like, how does this work? Like, I'm trying to like figure out like how all these things go together. You know, we'll just jump into some multiplayer. It'll be fine. Not a big deal. So it went okay. I feel like I did fine for, you know, literally jumping in completely blind. I thought it went okay. Well, Sea of Thieves was pretty good. Shooting cannons at other boats while on the rolling seas is very difficult.
Yes, for sure.
I think, and I'm really surprised that we didn't sink that boat because when we got attacked by a 2-person boat when we were a 4-person boat, but Jason was the only one on it at the time, so he called us back. I run. I'm the second one. I'm the first one back, so it's just Jason and I on there, and like he and I each hit the boat 2 times at least, if not 3 times, before you guys got back and we like drop sailed and like went after them. So I'm like, how did this thing not sink? I don't understand. Anyway, that's not the game I'm going to talk about. As you know, I recently got my first Xbox One. So I've been going back and checking out the back catalog, talking about only the latest and greatest games. I got a chance to play Ryse, Son of Rome. Now, as a primary PlayStation gamer, that's where most of my time is. I've heard a lot of things about Ryse, Son of Rome, but I was like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to too much of this. I'm going to go ahead and give this game a shot because there are games that I really enjoyed on PlayStation 4 that were pretty widely panned. Like I really had a lot of fun with The Order 1886. I thought that game was. That's fine that you didn't like it. I thought that game was a lot of fun. I had a good time. There's only one thing I didn't like. And that was the werewolves. That like fighting them. That was annoying. But outside of that, I thought the game was kind of fun. I thought the story was interesting. Like, I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. Whatever there. I thought the original Knack, not so bad. Was it a good game? No. But it wasn't horrible. Like, I didn't think it was that bad. So I was like, you know what? Ryse, Son of Rome didn't get a lot of love, I know, when it came out. It was a release game. But let's check it out. Let's go see how it is. And let me tell you, that's a fun little game. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I played through the entire thing last week. So it's not very long, obviously, and I didn't do any of the multiplayer stuff. I just played the story. But it's gorgeous, number one. Like, for being a launch game, that game is still a looker. It looks really, really good. The story was like, I'll be honest, I was surprised there was a story. I thought this was going to be like, oh, go here, do this thing, stab a person, go here, do this thing, stab a person. There's actually a story. It's kind of interesting. I kind of wanted to know what was going to happen. I felt like I knew what was going to happen the whole time, but I really wanted them to say it and be like, prove me right, which they did. But I kind of felt like, hey, this is pretty cool. So that's fun. I thought the combat was really fun. It gets a touch repetitive as far as some of the like ending assassination type things that you do. Like you tend to start seeing a lot of the similar ones once you've stabbed 1,000 people. Like you're going to start kind of seeing a few things similar. But the combat itself I found fun. I didn't really love the fact that they changed the colors of the individuals to have you be like, oh, when it's yellow I have to do Y and blue I have to do X. Like I get why they did that. But for me, I was just kind of like, I don't know what the better answer would have been. I'm not saying having the button on the screen would have been better. But as someone who doesn't play a lot of Xbox, I was like, wait,
look down.
Like, because I don't just know that, like my PS4 controller that I use doesn't even have the symbols on the things because I just know them so well. But like for Xbox, I'm like, wait, what? Shoot. Okay. So that took me a while to get into that. But overall, like that was fine. But I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was great. Oh, the only other big drawback I thought was that there was you fought a lot of the same enemies. Like
all the same, yeah.
Yeah, there's like, hey, that's the shield guy. All of the shield guys look like that. Hey, that's the regular barbarian. They pretty much all look like that. So that was the only other big downfall is that there's like 5 enemy types, but like every one of them looks exactly the same for that group. That and then there's a little bit of funky like motion blur when you run, but when you're not in combat and you're just like moving around, like the camera I felt like was pretty jerky, and there was like a lot of motion blur going on, which I wasn't a huge fan of. And I was probably now sounds like I'm talking poorly about this game, but I had a lot of fun while I was playing it. I thought that the fights were cool. I thought the story was interesting. The music was good. The game was beautiful, and it has HDR now, so it's like it looks even more beautiful. Like, I don't know why people were so down on this game. I don't know if it's changed drastically since the day it came out, because obviously I'm just playing it now. But I really had a good time with Ryse, Son of Rome. I thought it was a fun play. I don't know if I'll ever go back and play it again. I don't know if I'll ever play the multiplayer. So maybe had I paid $60 on launch for that game, maybe I would have felt differently about it because I didn't pay a dime for it. Thanks to you. So maybe I would have felt differently, but I had a lot of fun with it. I'm assuming you have played Ryse, Son of Rome.
Yeah, I would say try the multiplayer once. The Coliseum is pretty fun.
Okay.
Because you're playing against other people who are basically you. You get to. It's pretty fun time, and for me when I did the multiplayer mode, it really gave me that Gladiator movie feel, and I don't think many games do that.
Right.
Or any games really that like since like Pit Fighter, like it's and they do and they have cool things where like there's like obstacles that pop up in the middle of the Coliseum and stuff, and you have to go up stairs and stuff. It's very cool, even if you just try it once and then just don't do it again. It's really cool, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I was one of those guys who got it day one when I got it launch day with my Xbox One, and it was I had $60. I wasn't gonna get it. I had to pick between one. It was like that, and whatever game I didn't get, and I picked that, and I loved it. I was super happy with it. But I'm also a big fan of that time period.
Oh, gotcha.
So that theme really suits me well. So I probably would have liked it more than most people, anyways, because of the theme. But I was a big fan of it. I really liked the game, and I'm glad you played it. And I'm glad Game Pass is going to give more people access to it, because it really is like a little hidden gem on the Xbox that people were like, I'm not going to play that game. It's got terrible reviews. Nobody liked it. But in actuality, it didn't even get terrible reviews. It just got middle range. Yeah. And people swore it off.
And maybe it's one of those things that, you have low expectations for something, so it just seems better. When you have high expectations for something, you're like, oh, gosh. Yeah. And then I jumped into, I've just started Recore. I haven't gotten very far into it. So either that, or I might go and do the Halo 5 thing. One of those two will probably be the next thing I talk about as far as games I finished. I got a huge itch recently on PlayStation, and even though Shadow of the Colossus is coming out next week, which I intend to get, I started playing Persona 5 again.
Oh boy.
So I was like, well, I got Shadow of the Colossus coming up, and then after that, like the next game I really, really want to get, like 100%, like I'm getting, is probably Ni no Kuni / A Way Out / Far Cry 5, all within like 4 days of each other at the end of March. So I was like, well, what do I want to do between now and then? Let's go back to Persona 5. So I'm gonna have to work on those Xbox games to actually have something to talk about on this podcast other than Overwatch and Persona. So I'm gonna have to keep doing that. But Josh, we talked about music for board games, and really the reason I shoehorned that in is I really wanted to talk about music for video games, because you and I have been chatting recently. I'm looking at getting a turntable. I'm a big fan of music, and there's a lot of really awesome video game soundtracks that you can get on vinyl. But I just want to talk a little bit about, video game music. Do you care about it? How much do you care about gaming soundtracks? Do you listen to them separately? When you're playing games, do you listen to the music in the game? Or are you one of those people who listens to podcasts while you're playing? Kind of what does video game music mean to you? And if you do care about it, like what are some of your favorite game soundtracks?
So gaming music is equally as important to the gameplay, in my opinion.
Whew.
That's how important
gameplay?
I think. Yes, that's how important I think gaming music is. But allow me to explain. And to answer a question that was in that question, the only time I have ever listened to something like a podcast other than a game was probably when I hit my 900th hour in Destiny 1, where I just didn't really need to hear the same soundtrack again. However, the soundtrack is incredible for Destiny.
Yes.
But at some point, like I was behind on my podcast log, and it was fine that I was missing like something that always boggled my mind. I don't know if PlayStation has it, but Xbox, they have this thing where you can put your own playlist and play it in the background of your Xbox, even while you're playing games.
Yeah. You can, if you have a Spotify account, you can play any of your Spotify playlists and stuff on your PlayStation while you're playing.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't get it because, okay. So allow me to explain my first comment. Take a game. A lot of the games I play are in the style of maybe like Uncharted, Horizon Zero Dawn, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, all these third person games, which you have a lot of downtime in between things. So you take a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I'm a big fan of the gameplay, but if there was no music in between you going from point A to point B, not using fast travel or exploring a mountain or climbing, even Zelda, climbing mountains and falling off because you lose your grip. If you can imagine playing that game with no audio, imagine or like a monotone noise. Imagine how much that would affect the gameplay. Imagine how much that would affect your gaming experience. I don't mean gameplay like in how the controller works, but your gameplay as an overall experience of the game.
Okay.
Not
I'm with
necessarily
you a little more there because I was like, well, if the controls are bad, but the music is good, that's okay. Like
your controller, I'm not saying like your physical controller would change, but if you're even Overwatch, the music in Overwatch is great. And if it was terrible, you wouldn't enjoy the game as much, I don't think. But, it's hard to say because I don't necessarily I can't say I played Overwatch with bad music unless I did try to play Overwatch and put on like Britney Spears in my headphones. Like maybe that would be an example I would need if it changed. Maybe we can do a study.
Why are you hating on Britney?
It's just an example. She's just not my cup of tea. Who should I say?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Morrissey.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Billy Ray Cyrus. Okay, so we'll do a test.
That I'm fine with.
So I'll go play. I'll play Overwatch tomorrow night for an hour with my headphones on, but listening to Overwatch. And then I'll play Overwatch Thursday night, and I'll put on a country record on my iTunes.
Well, as long as you play as McCree, He'll
No, I want
probably
it themed diva all the way. So then I'll put on like K-pop when I'm playing. That'll probably make the experience fun. I think if you have bad music, I think it's going to affect your gaming experience, period.
So what are some of your favorite gaming soundtracks then?
I'm always big on the space opera. So Halo, Destiny, Star Wars, those kind of games. Those are the ones that like stick out, but because they're big on purpose.
Right.
I bet if I like I was really bummed because for a while people were sharing pictures of Horizon Zero Dawn soundtrack coming out on the PlayStation Store exclusively, and I kept refreshing the link, and because I think Callow posted it, I kept refreshing the link, and it was a PS EU exclusive.
Yeah, it was EU exclusive.
So I can imagine if I got the Horizon Zero Dawn record and I put it on and just sat and listened to it, I bet it would be awesome. But I can't tell you right now that it was super memorable to me while I was playing the game. I just know it was good enough to keep me in the game.
Right. I hear you. Do you have any like classic, like more chiptune games that you enjoy their soundtrack from?
Yeah, I mean, all the NES games were so drastically different. I can tell you when I booted up the SNES Classic and I got those games that don't come with a retail version, and I put in Batman Returns, the soundtrack started while the screen was still black, and I got this huge wave of nostalgia and like familiarity that it really just hit the spot. I was like, oh my, and my wife was next to me. And I'm like, you don't even know what's going on right now.
You can't understand what I'm experiencing.
It was incredible. Like just hearing that soundtrack was great. So I love maybe the SNES ones when they can get a little bit more experimental with the music. I think a lot of those games really, but Spy Hunter will always do it for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Chrono Trigger one, which obviously is like a pretty universal. Like people tend to love the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, but I think that thing is exceptional.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge fan of video game music. I listen to it a lot at work. I listen to a lot of video game soundtracks while I'm working because I think it's a really easy way to get some solid classical style music, but in a lot of different varieties, right? Because you're right, the space opera, like I could listen to like the opening, like for me it's always Halo 3, like that's the one that sticks with me. But I could like listen to that opening, like just sitting on that main screen. I could just sit there all day. Like I love that main Halo theme. I think it is exceptional. So those are always great. Some ones that I wanted to point out, even just last year, like 2017 for video game music was incredible. I thought Horizon soundtrack was great. I thought they did a really excellent job. It might not stick as long as some of the other ones will, but I think that opening, the main theme that you hear when you boot up the game, I think is very, very memorable. So that one was great. The Persona 5 theme or soundtrack is really exceptional. It's really different. It's kind of almost got like a jazzy vibe to it. But it is just really cool and like an awesome way if you're just looking for some background stuff. They have some with lyrics and some without, but that game has just so much style, and like the style comes from, because you're right, like if there was a different soundtrack to that game, like playing it would be 100% different. Like how that game is put together and the style of that game and how excellent that soundtrack is just phenomenal. Nier has gotten a ton of attention for its soundtrack, which I agree with 100%. I think Nier had an absolutely excellent soundtrack that I think caught a lot of people by surprise. I don't think a lot of people were expecting the music in that game to be as stellar as it is. But one that I want to point out that I think is not getting the attention that it deserves, even though the game was very highly reviewed by critics and people seem to really love it. It was one of my favorite games of last year, but I don't think people are talking about the soundtrack very much. And that's the soundtrack to What Remains of Edith Finch. This soundtrack is not a bombastic, in your face, like you're gonna like remember all these themes and these big, sweeping overtures from it. It is a very subtle, understated, eerie, like interesting, like contemplative soundtrack. Like when you if you ever listen to it, like it's just, every time I listen to it, I'm like, is it still going? Because there's like big parts of silence. Like it really plays with music in an interesting way. And I think that game, and when I think about part of the reason why I enjoyed that game so much, and I think why others probably enjoyed that game so much, is because I think the soundtrack does such an excellent job of heightening your emotions at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons, that it really helps create an unforgettable experience. Like What Remains of Edith Finch will probably continue to be a game that I talk about for years to come. And I think a lot of the reason for that is the excellent work done on the soundtrack. The interesting thing about it, which I didn't even realize until after I played the game, and because I loved the soundtrack so much, I wanted to go, find out more information about it. It was written by a guy named Jeff Russo. Does that name ring a bell for you at all?
Yeah, of the Russo brothers.
I guess I don't know of the Russo brothers, maybe.
Oh. Then
So
no, if it doesn't ring a bell, then you wouldn't. Then you don't know that one.
That one is not so. Maybe I should know that.
They're directors. They did Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Oh no! Sorry, I was thinking from a music perspective. No, not that.
No.
So Jeff Russo, he's done actually a decent number as of late of television. He actually does the music for Fargo. He did for American Gothic, The Night Of. He does it for Legion. He actually is doing it, I think, for Star Trek Discovery, like on the CBS app, Star Trek show. So he's done some cool stuff. But Jeff Russo, because I saw the name, I'm like, I know that name from somewhere. He got his start. He is, I think, the bass player in the band Tonic.
Oh, really?
From the 90s. Yeah, like one of my favorite bands from the 90s, because like I know that name. Like I really know that name. And yeah, so he's totally one of the members of Tonic. And then he wrote, and like I love that band. I listen to their music all of the time. And then I heard this soundtrack that I thought was amazing. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I found out it was written by, a guy whose music I've been listening for 20 plus years, and I didn't even realize it. So if you're a youngin and you don't know who Tonic is, go look at Tonic. They're pretty sweet. But yeah, so I think with the What Remains of Edith Finch soundtrack, like I said, I think totally underrated. Give it a listen. It's very soft. It's very subtle. But I think really, really heightened the experience of playing that game. And even listening to it on its own, if you're into that style of music, is exceptional. So yeah, soundtracks. I don't think they get enough. I don't think we talk about them as often as we should.
Yeah, it's usually, people don't usually talk about them. I don't think in film, or in gaming, really, people just it's one of those things people take for granted, and they only remember when award season comes around, and they're like, "Oh yeah."
Right. Yeah, it is interesting though, because especially when you talk about movies, it seems like there's like basically a handful of composers these days that seem to always be regularly the ones that we hear about and the ones doing things. And apparently, so what I read and have learned through listening, that folks like your Hans Zimmers and things like that often aren't, even though if they're listed as the composer, like they themselves are actually not always composing all of that music anymore. They have like tons of employees and things like that work for them that do a lot of that work. So yeah, just an interesting fact. Like I said, doesn't mean that guy doesn't make brilliant, amazing music still. He definitely does. So, well, Josh, anything else you want to add to our soundtrack talk?
No, I was just going to say, like, you asked me about Pacific Rim, and I was like, oh, Hans Zimmer, I think. I don't know. So, like, I think you're right. Like, when you kind of hit it what I was going to talk about, because the same thing happens with, like, oh, everyone thinks John Williams does everything that has strings in it. Oh, it must have been John Williams.
Well, it is interesting because there was a thing I was reading a thing just recently about how, like, most of, like, the really, really well-known Hollywood composers are getting up there in age. Like, none of them are super young for, like, the really well-known ones. So there's all these questions about, like, who is going to be the next, like, who is the next John Williams? Who is the next Hans Zimmer? Like, who's the next Danny Elfman? Like, who's going to do these things? And it's interesting because there are definitely some soundtracks that have been coming out recently and some scores that have been coming out recently from some newer faces that have been really excellent. Now, of course, off the top of my head, I can't remember any of them, but I think there are people who, there's going to be some opportunities coming up here that, a lot of those people we have been hearing musical scores from for many, many years are not going to be giving us musical scores for much longer. So
Is it too late for a career change? Can I go into composing?
You can certainly give it a whirl. I composed some things back in high school and early college, but man, that was a different time when I played musical instruments a lot. So I don't think I can make that change anymore, but you are more than welcome to. So as always, everyone, if you have some favorite video game scores, let us know. Hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter. Tell us all of the awesome video game music that you enjoy listening to. Josh, what do you say we wrap this show up and call it a night?
That sounds like a great idea. So yeah, I think you hit all of our plugs. So I'll just say thanks for joining us, guys. I'm not going to plug anything. I'm going to say today was my wife and I's 7-year togetherness anniversary.
Well, okay. Is this like
dating? First date.
Okay, for like 7 years from the first date. Okay.
Well, not first date. First, I asked her to go steady.
Okay, that was going to be my other question. Or is this like 7 years of now us being exclusive?
Official, like just us dating. And it also happens to be the day my son took his first steps.
Oh, congratulations.
So it was a huge day. I was at work when it happened, of course, but I got a nice video sent to me. So it's been a pretty awesome day.
So when's he getting a job?
As soon as he can talk. Like, I'm going to send him out the door, doing his baby walk. And we get a big weekend for us here in Massachusetts. So
is something going on I'm not aware of?
Yeah, you know.
I'm a little bitter still. Just a little bitter.
We legally have to call the big game. Otherwise, you might get a cease and desist. So
that's right. The Puppy Bowl is this weekend. Make sure you watch the Puppy Bowl.
I'll just say go Pats, and I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, hey, you can always find me on Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. I will be, some people are going to be upset with this. I'm also rooting for the Patriots this weekend because A, the Eagles knocked out my Vikings. B, I should be rooting for the Eagles because, their starting quarterback until he was hurt was from my alma mater. So from NDSU. So I am a Carson Wentz fan, but I am sorry. Eagles fans, I can't. They're just, I can't. Like, if you see any of the videos of like the way they treated, and like everyone knows the stories about like Eagles fans from the past, but like just the stuff from the game like 2 weekends ago, it was so bad. Like they were just horrible to people. Like,
and they won. They won, and they were
I know they won and they were bad, but they were also bad like before the game. Like. Yeah. They vandalized the bus afterwards. Like, I mean, it was just ridiculous. So I can't root for that. And you know what? Sometimes it's good to have, that team that just says, hey, here's the standard of excellence. Come beat us if you can. And, as someone who's, like I said, my alma mater, NDSU, has won 6 national championships in the last 7 years in football. I got to sometimes go like, you know what? Beat the best. If you can't beat the best, then you don't get the title. Done. Plus, Bill Belichick being like, "Oh, how's the Super Bowl different? Or how's this big game different?"
It's in Minnesota.
It's in Minnesota. It's like how perfect is that? This one's in Minnesota. Okay. Thanks, Bill Belichick. That's great. I'm sure the Browns fans are super happy with the job that you did for them. So as always, everyone, thanks for listening. We truly appreciate it. No matter who you're rooting for in the big game, we appreciate the fact that you listen. And like I said, feel free to reach out to us on social media. We love to have those conversations with you. And remember, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.
This has been a production of the Play Some Video Games Podcast Network. Find more great content at playsomevideogames.com.